Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Jobcast. I'm excited to introduce our guest speaker today, Claire Wasserman. Claire is named one of Entrepreneur Magazine's 100 Most Powerful Women, and she's the founder of Ladies Get Paid, a platform that champions the professional and financial advancement of women. Their community of 70,000 women worldwide, myself included, support one another through sharing advice, resources, job opportunities, and more. And that's me, Brandy Warwas. I'm on Indeed's Job Seeker Experience team. We're responsible for creating helpful resources like this Jobcast for our users, like you. So take it away, Claire.
Thanks so much, Brandy, for having me. And hi, 1.7 thousand of you. It's busy. You probably have a lot going on. So I'm just really honored that you decided to spend your time here with us today. So I have to warn you, okay? The first part of this presentation is going to be a little upsetting, a little depressing, but I guarantee you by the end of this, it gets better, okay? So I'm going to talk a little bit about women just because that's my expertise, but statistics around the workforce right now is not great in general. But the thing that I have been very concerned about is the fact that less than 22% of women are making it past middle management, even though we are extremely educated, okay? Then I'm also very concerned with the wage gap. And you'll see in a minute how that's connected to salary negotiation. But look at this statistic, guys, right here. Black women are making between 63 and 68 cents on the dollar. And it's worse for Hispanic women, right? Hispanic women are making closer to 55 cents to the dollar. So here was my question, and I thought about this about 5 years ago. If there is something so systemic and overwhelming, right, this deeply entrenched discrimination, what can you as an individual possibly do to combat this? I mean, it literally feels impossible. But that's when I had an aha moment. And the aha moment was, what happens if I negotiated for more? What happens if I got paid more, right? That could be a way that I could make sure that I was closing the gap in my own life. And then what happens if I taught another woman to negotiate her salary? And then that woman taught another woman, right? So that's not it. You got to do more than that. But let's just start with ourselves. It's about taking command. It's about pushing back, not accepting what you're given. It's a dialogue. And we're going to talk about how to have that dialogue in just a bit. But this is extremely powerful what you are doing. And this is a lot bigger than you. And it's also a lot bigger than just what you're making today because, money compounds over time, especially if you're investing in it. So the salary that you're commanding today, it will translate into more money in the future. So do think when you are negotiating that this is bigger than you. All right, just a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. And, I teach all-day seminars on this, so I might talk just a little bit fast, but there's a chance for you to ask questions, which I think you're starting to do now. Okay, so the first step here, we've got to get into a negotiating mindset, okay? A lot of us are feeling uncomfortable, guilty for asking for more, a lot of nerves. Okay, so this is what I'm going to try to do, and you tell me if I do a good job. I'm going to try to convince you to see negotiating as an opportunity, right, as a positive thing. All right, so you're feeling good, but you don't know what to charge because you can't just go in there and say some random number. This really has to be rooted in context and in evidence. Now you're going to go to Indeed, of course, that's where you start, but I want to also have you think a little bit outside and what are all the different places that could maybe help inform you on what your market value is. Then after that, it's not one number that you're bringing in because if you bring in one number, you'll probably get less. So you have to come prepared with 3 numbers. And this is in essence, a kind of framework for negotiating because chances are they're going to say no. So you have to have another number in your back pocket. So we're going to talk about that. If they say no, okay, this is the big question right now. I don't know how many of you are furloughed, unemployed, underemployed, okay? You might not be getting the money that you want, but that is not a reason to not ask. And it is also not a reason to stop when you get a no. What you're going to also talk about is full compensation. There's a thing called full comp. This goes well beyond the paycheck. These are things that your company can give you that cost them either no money or a little bit of money, but you have to ask. And in order to ask, you have to know what you're asking for. So we're going to talk about that. And then the last part of this is actually really why you're here. It's the making the case part. I'm going to give you a couple of different scenarios of both if you were interviewing for a new job, how do you negotiate for that salary? And then if you already have the job, how do you bring up the conversation about a raise? And I'll give you a few options. Shift your mindset. Okay, guys, remember, this is when I'm going to try to convince you that this negotiating is a good thing. First, a little bit of self-reflection here. I so wish we were in person, although I guess, it's probably better that we're not. But this is where you'd raise your hand and you would tell me, how does negotiating make you feel? Horrible. I'm just going to guess. Nauseous, vomit, anxious, right? Let your body feel how bad it feels, okay? Now we're going to just put those emotions aside. We're going to compartmentalize it and we're going to say to ourselves, it's just math. It's math for the business and it's going to be math for myself. But you have to convince yourself to get there. So first, and by the way, I traveled the country 2 years ago. I went to 19 cities. I hosted town halls for women to talk about money and what money means to them. 150, 200 people per town hall. So that's a lot of women. And these mindsets around negotiating, these were the ones that they told me. So I'm curious if this also resonates with you. So number one, I don't want to negotiate because I'm worried that they're not going to like me. Right? By negotiating that somehow you're jeopardizing your relationship with them or the opportunity. And here's the thing. The first number that they give you is just that. It is a first number. Very rarely do companies give an offer, the first offer, and that's the last offer. Even if they tell you it's the last offer, you can still try to negotiate. So if they are giving you an offer, that first offer, knowing or expecting that you're going to negotiate, the very fact that you're negotiating, why would they not like you for it, right? This is part of the process of getting a job or getting a raise. Here's the thing. I don't believe it's really what you say in life. I really think it's how you say it. So this is the opportunity. When you come and you are a strong negotiator, how are you strong? You're strong because you did a bunch of research. You're strong because you've made a compelling case. It's not about you deserving it. It's about you effectively presenting to them that you are worthy of this. You have done an excellent job. And you're presenting it in an empathetic way, in a thoughtful, professional way. Think about if you are hiring somebody, right? I own my own business. If somebody comes to me and they negotiate in a way that demonstrates they know their value, they're appreciative of the opportunity, and they're excited to make this work, I'm going to think to myself, man, I want them to negotiate for my company. Okay, so this is an opportunity for you to actually look really good. All right, what about I feel lucky to have the opportunity, and that's what's stopping you from negotiating? I think a lot of women might feel this way, but men, absolutely. Man, they feel lucky to have you. You have to remember that if you are at a place where they're giving you an offer or you have worked there long enough to be up for a raise, they don't want you to leave. They don't want you to leave. Imagine if you say to them, you know what, that's not enough money for me, and you go walk away. Companies lose billions of dollars, and yes, that is billions with a B. Companies lose so much money if candidates walk away or if they lose employees, right? It's called they want to retain you, right? Okay, so you have to remember, these are two people in a negotiation who are absolutely on the same side, and you are trying to make it work. A negotiation is about a creative solution. Okay, I'm going to be honest here, all right? Compromise, in my opinion, compromise is really defined about both people giving up something and both people getting something. Okay. I think I need to underprice myself to be competitive. How many of you feel that way? One quick thing about online applications, and by the way, I have opinions on this, but my opinion is not the rule. You should be asking other people. On an online application, perhaps you could put 0 if they ask you what salary that you're looking for. You could also put kind of towards the bottom or the mid part of the research you've done, because at that point, your goal is to just get in the door. You're trying to get the interview. But now when you're at a place where you're negotiating, if you underprice yourself, guess what? You're looking like you don't value yourself. You don't look like you value yourself. And you know what else? You're depressing wages for everybody. We do not want to teach our employers that they should be finding the cheapest person. It's a race to the bottom if we're doing that. And remember the statistics that I just said, especially for women? We really owe it to ourselves and to all of us. We need to stand our ground and say, this is the market research I did, and here's why I'm worth it. Last part, I'm afraid I might lose the opportunity. You know what? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The strongest negotiators are the people who can walk away. Where you can say, you know what, this isn't going to work for me. How are you going to do that if you don't have savings? How are you going to do that if you don't have another opportunity lined up? So make sure you always have a safety net. I think we're all realizing that very deeply now. So keep that in mind. Why do you want to make more money? All right, you want to make more money because money is nice. I want you to actually think about specifically and tangibly, what is it that you're going to use with that money? Write it down. I find it becomes a lot easier to negotiate when you're able to sort of visualize this tangible thing that you want. Is it your student loans, your kids' loans to go to college, your house, your car? You are asking for those things. This is not about the abstract. All right, we're going to calculate your market value. This is where Indeed comes along and is an extremely helpful service for this. Now, before you start looking for how much you should charge, keep in mind it's going to be a range. And this is what employers call a pay band, right? You're calculated in pay bands. But it's rooted in context. So let's say you're a graphic designer and you're trying to figure out how much to charge full-time. Let's just say full-time. You have to also say, well, how many people does this company employ? Where is it located? How many years of experience do I have? Can I code, right? Do I have special skills on top of it? Because the company is using all of those variables to calculate how much they're going to pay you. So if you're coming up with a salary, but it's based on some like massive company and you're working for a small company or a startup, probably they're not going to pay as much. New York, your company's in New York, they're probably going to pay you more than if you're in another state, right? Or another city. So please keep that in mind. Now I need you to get the heck offline, okay? So why don't you reach out to recruiters, okay? This is also good networking. You can find them on LinkedIn. Staffing firms, asking friends of friends, does anybody know a recruiter? They are a treasure trove of information. It is their job, A, to know what the market rate is, and B, they also want to know as many really talented people as possible. So that's definitely a place to start networking. Any groups that you're a part of. If you went to college, right, your alumni group, maybe going back to the Career Resource Center at your college. It doesn't matter if it's 20 years ago, okay? You paid for it. You got to go use it. Any professional organizations, ladies get paid, right? LinkedIn organizations. If you are sitting here and listening to me going, I'm not part of any of those groups, this is a wake-up call. Go join those groups. You know why? Because when you have a group of people, you can survey them. Everybody wants to get paid. Everybody's trying to figure out how much to charge. So if you go to your college and you say, I'm trying to figure this out, I wonder if other alumni are also trying to figure this out. Should we do something to facilitate that conversation? When you go into a LinkedIn group and you ask, I bet a lot of people are going to respond to you. Now, your goal, or this is my challenge to you, can you get 6 sources? Right? Could half of them be offline? Or even how about this? 6 offline sources. That's what I'm talking about, the real people. Another great thing to do, and hear me out here for a minute, friends of friends of friends. Okay, this is how I have gotten pretty much every opportunity in my life and figured out what to charge. I first began with who in my network is very well networked themselves. I call this a portal person, this person who has access. I go to that person and I say, here's my situation. I'm applying for this job that has, 40 people who works at the company, and right, you're giving context. I don't know what to charge. Is there anybody in your network that you think could help me? Maybe they can help you, right? But the point that I'm trying to make here is when you think about who you know that can help you, and your first thought is, I don't know anybody, that's not true. You know people who know people, but you have to be able to tap into that. And that means making it really easy on them. They don't have time. So you're writing them a couple of sentences, being extremely clear about who you are and what you're looking for. Now, if they know somebody, but it's kind of uncomfortable to ask people straight up, well, how much do you make? Because I get it, right? It's kind of a taboo topic. I would just show them the range that you found, right? You want to do some research to begin with. So you say, here's the ballpark that I found. Am I off base here? Or do you want to tell me the ballpark? Is it more than 50,000, more than 75,000? Keep in mind, and I said this before, if every single person needs to get paid and is trying to figure out how much to charge, you are doing them a favor by bringing this up first. You are normalizing the conversation. Last thing I'm going to say about this, and I think you're hearing how friggin' passionate I am about talking about money. I think there's research out there that says that if you don't talk about money, you're going to make less. Let's say you're going to make $10,000 more just by bringing this up with a group of people, but you decide it's too awkward. Okay, so you're silent. You do realize that your silence costs $10,000. So if we're going to go back to this being math, really sit down and go, is it worth not talking about it, even if it's awkward? We're going to ready our range now, right? Like I said, you found your number, you found your pay band, but you do need to pick, in my opinion, you need to pick 3 numbers. Okay, So I'm calling the first number. This is the rock star money. It's not random, right? Not out of the blue sky. This is based on the pay band. It's going to be the top of the band. Maybe even go a little bit higher. If you don't feel uncomfortable, it is definitely not high enough, right? If you feel uncomfortable, I want you to say this number again and again and again. Do it in front of a person, do it in front of a mirror, project into the future. Think about your future self looking back at you, seeing you say this number, and this is what I've done. I think that number is so cute, right? There's been years past where I've charged clients what I felt like was so much money, and yes, it was a lot of money at the time, and I was so nervous. Now, when I look back at that amount compared to what I'm charging today, and I think that number was cute. Okay, so project a little bit. The middle of the number, this feeling good, okay? This is the probably like smack dab right in the middle of that pay band. This number is probably what you're going to get, so make sure that you are happy with it. When you go into negotiate, you're going to forget that number. You're going to start with the rock star money. But just know this is probably the number that you're going to end up settling on. Last number, and this number is very important. It's the bottom line. All right? I usually call it, I respect myself too much. No thanks. The reason that this one's very important is because if you go below it, you are now giving up your values. Right? This is also why I'm super into salary negotiation and talking about money. This is a time to really reflect on the lifestyle you want, your values, your priorities, right? And money is part of that. It's facilitating your ability to reach those goals and those values and those priorities. So spend time. If you're feeling uncomfortable or lost, this is a great opportunity to start doing more reading about money. And I'm going to here just talk to you a little bit about bottom line because it is so important. And the company is probably going to push you to your bottom line or below your bottom line. So we have to really commit to staying strong with this. Here's how I would do it. Again, not a science. I'm just one person. So you start with your budget. You always start with your budget, and you're going to start with your budget after tax, right? We're talking about taxes a lot these days. So please factor in those taxes. 50% of your post-tax income, it is your must-haves. Anything that you need to live. Roof over your head, for example, okay? 30% of your income, those are the nice to haves. Things are probably changing now. I think we probably are cutting down on those nice to haves, but we're talking about going out to eat, let's say. And then the last 20%, I really think of these as sort of the responsible spending. So paying off debt, by the way, credit card debt, first debt to pay down. Absolutely. Nothing else. You want to get that credit card debt down because that interest is insane. Savings for the future. Clearly we need savings. Okay. 50%, all right, half to the must-haves. That 30%, that 20%, maybe let's swap it these days. Now, I put that in one column. Then I'm going to write out all the things that this company gives me. Money is one of them. But maybe this is, the name of the company is really kind of fancy and you're thinking about the future here and you're going to leverage, the name of that company is going to help you get your next job. Maybe you are pivoting a little bit. You're expanding your skill set or you're working for somebody who's going to be a mentor. Maybe it's a great commute. Right? There's a lot of reasons to take a job. But what you're ultimately going to do here, especially if it's kind of side by side in those columns, right? This is a cost benefit analysis. If you take this job, at your bottom line or below, is it worth it? Sit with that because when you're in the moment and they're negotiating you down, you're going to start feeling desperate and you might say yes. You might even find yourself negotiating yourself down. But if you did this work where you really dug in to that cost benefit analysis of your budget, what you need, what you want, and what this company is offering you, then you're making an educated decision and you can feel good about it. Great resource here. Explore Indeed salary database. Super easy. Indeed.com/salaries. This is going to give you everything that you want to know. Have a little experiment. Look at this. Talk to other people. I'm curious to see if you find any patterns or trends. And another reason why I want you to get a lot of evidence is not just that you feel good about what you're charging. You could bring it up. You can say, I looked at Indeed. I talked to 2 recruiters, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So you're having an informed conversation, and that's exactly what it is. Negotiation is a conversation. But we got to think beyond the paycheck, especially because we are in a time where budgets are probably tight. Even if they weren't tight, you still want to think beyond the paycheck. So full compensation, please go Google it because you're going to have a lot more examples than the one that we have here. So flexibility. I was going to say working from home, that's huge. Maybe we don't want to work from home anymore. But flexibility, higher commission, start date, moving costs, stock options, travel, career development. I think career development is huge. Everything that you do today is orienting yourself for the future, whether it's the money that you make or the kind of work that you do and the skills that you're having. This is all about leveraging it for whatever comes next. That's what's so great about career development. Go get them to pay for you to go to a conference. Ladies get paid at a conference tomorrow. They should pay for your ticket. Go get, learn to code. I mean, I keep bringing that up. There's all these initiatives out there. And how you make that case is you're positioning it as a benefit to the business. If I learn these skills, this will help me do my job better. Lots more than what we've listed here. So again, please Google full compensation. Now, here's the thing. I would, and this is my personal opinion, like I said, I'm just one person. I would really square away the money conversation first, and then you talk about full compensation. You know why? Because if you start talking about all these extra things that you want besides money, they could use that as leverage to get your dollar down. Oh, I see that you want to work from home. Okay, well, we can allow you to do that, but here's the salary that we can give you, and it's lower. So unless that there's some kind of deal breaker that you need to bring up at the beginning, and yes, you do need to bring that up so you're not wasting anybody's time, I would say, this is the conversation about the money. Great. Now I'd like to discuss my full compensation package. Right. And also, before you go in and talk about your full compensation, make a list of all the things you want and then prioritize them, and then don't bring up more than 3 because you're not getting it all. But the reason that you have it prepared is if you bring up, 1, 2, 3, and they're like, we can't do it, your goal is to get something out of them. You got to get one extra thing. All right. That's my challenge to you. Now, this is the time you have all been waiting for. You will make your case. Okay. Remember in the beginning when I said you're not getting the money because you deserve it, even though I totally know you deserve it, and if I were your boss, I'd be giving you that money. No, you're gonna get the money you want because you've effectively made a really compelling case on why you are worth the dollars. You have brought in money. That's how we're gonna position all of this. So hear me out in a second. When you think about your accomplishments, if you're somebody who's really hard on yourself or you're a perfectionist, kind of raising my hand here, sometimes I find it can be a bit difficult to think about, what were my wins this year? Or it was my job. So, they're not wins. I was told I had to do it. Okay. Too humble. There's not time to be humble. Okay. Think about the stuff that was hard this year, any kind of obstacles that you had and how you overcame them. That's a great story. Times that you went above and beyond, or times that you took initiative. Maybe programs or processes or products you've created. That's a good alliteration. I got the 3 Ps. Anything that you're excited about or ideas for the future, because whatever you bring up from the past, I did this thing and it was a great win, but you didn't like doing it. Maybe don't bring that up, because when you do, you're effectively saying to them, hey, I want to do more of this moving forward. So filter all of your wins through what it is that you want to be recognized and rewarded for. That's what I said before. Position yourself for your next job. Ideas for the future, especially if this is a new job that you're negotiating for. It's almost like a salesperson. Here are some ideas I have. If you like it, you got to pay me for them. Okay. Take some time. I mean, again, assuming that you're humble, or you're feeling a bit awkward talking about your accomplishments. A great way to get started is to just look at your original job description of when they hired you, and then write up a new one for what you actually did. So if this is an old job, you go do that. If you're negotiating at your current job, you could still go do that. Look at how things change. That's going to be my little challenge to you. I'm curious if you had scope change. And I think, I can't see you all. I know that you're nodding because I've heard this from other people, a lot of women. Your job probably doubled. You probably took over for somebody else who left or went on maternity leave, right? Your job probably got really big or different. Focus on that. There is a gold mine there of wins and accomplishments that you can absolutely talk about. Now, how do you talk about it? This is where pen and paper, right? Or your computer, that works too. Imagine that you are in a movie and you are a main character. The reason I'm having you do that is because if you're feeling quite humble, you're probably going to just, go past all the details, and the details are the devil's in the details, right? So really sit down, write this whole script, and follow what I call the STAR method. This is a great structure. So it's an acronym, STAR, situation, task, action, results. Situation. So we're going to take one of your wins, this obstacle, this challenge that you were given. Give us some context. Who, what, when, where, why? What was at stake, right? There's always something at stake. Even if it was your job, You are hired because you make money. And even if it's not totally obvious, what you do affects somebody else, who affects somebody else. Money is being brought in. There are things at stake. So please talk about it. Task. Okay, it's pretty easy. What were you asked to do? Or what did you take on? Action. What did you do? I would add this component. I would say, how did you do it? Right? Because you might have been really resourceful and creative and did something with like 24-hour turnaround time, or you busted your butt. Go talk about it. Go talk about it. Also, with the results, what happened. I'd also talk about maybe what you learned about your team, the business, the industry, yourself, right? Because companies are always looking for people who are fast learners. You want to demonstrate that. The last thing here, and this is extremely important, and it might take a little bit of work on your end, but it's absolutely worth it. What was your impact? And do your best to try to quantify it. So impact, how many people, showed up, or how much time was saved, because time is money. If you created some kind of process and it made, folks more productive or facilitated communication, you might have to make up a couple of numbers there, but you could approximate. And like I said, the money that you brought in. So let me tell you a super quick story about this woman. She was at a workshop that I taught. She worked in a magazine, big media company, and she was one of the videographers. And she said she didn't really know what her impact was, other than, she put up the video and she could see how many views there were. And that was absolutely a result, a quantifiable result. But in the room, I said, has anybody in sales, anybody in business development here, anybody getting people to buy ads? And this woman raised her hand. And I said, do you ever use videos, the videos that are currently on this website? Do you ever use those in order to get clients to say yes? And she said, absolutely. I've closed deals that are approximately, 6 figures. And in my presentations, I show videos that have been made here. And what I said to that original woman who didn't know quite what her impact was, especially in terms of money, the moral of the story was, you got to talk to people. You have to talk to people, and you got to talk to your boss all year and say, I want to make sure that I am completely clear on what my impact is here. I want to learn about the business. I want to understand my place in it. I want to be a leader. So even though you might be kind of fishing for evidence when you go in to negotiate, you'll look great when you're having this conversation. So please do your due diligence. And then the last thing here is part of the story is do some self-reflection on what I call superpowers, okay? This is, I think, a little bit more about who you are and not just what you did. Enthusiasm, positivity, detail-oriented, empathy, efficiency, innovation, leadership. There's so many more, right? If it's not clear to you kind of who you are, ask somebody that you work with and maybe ask somebody that you don't work with and say, how do I impact you? How do you experience me? This is more in the emotional intelligence, right? The reason that I'm telling you to look at this is, yes, to make you feel good. B, when you know these things about yourself, you can kind of lean into them a little bit more. You being a really positive, enthusiastic person, that's just not a nice to have. Maybe you should really be using it for your job function. So it should give you kind of an indication of perhaps a direction to move in. But most importantly, you want to say what it is about you that had an impact with results. Being positive, that means you got the team to be excited. And what happens when the team's excited? They're more invested. And when they're more invested, they work harder. They're more productive. That brings in money. Don't assume that the person that you're negotiating with knows that about you. So it might feel a little weird to say, I'm an empathetic person. Well, you're not going to say I'm an empathetic person. You're going to say I'm an empathetic person. And here's how I've seen that it helps me in my work. Now we're going to talk about those scripts. Please, everybody, let's practice not using these friggin' filler words. Feel, believe, think, just, only, might. I actually have a question. I just have a question. No, I have a question, okay? These filler words, these are sort of hedges, makes us look less, we don't look like we have authority. Just say what you mean. And no more ums, ahs, rights, likes. I mean, I'm still working on it. But this is, I just said the negotiation, this is the time where you come in and you are strong. I have to give a shout out to the double bind. I'm really sorry about this. So these are for, my ladies in the audience, my women of color. There's this thing called the double bind if you would like to research it. What it effectively is when a person acts outside of the kind of social norm of how we expect them, we penalize them. Meaning, for a woman, she goes in and she acts assertive. chances are we're going to now see, she's aggressive. And you know what's really terrible about that? Women do that to other women just as much as men do that to women, okay? So I'm not placing blame on anyone in particular. I'm just saying perhaps the first thing that we need to do is start reflecting on when we are judging other people, right? So how do we counter this, and why am I talking about it now? Well, I'm talking about it now just, in the example I gave of when you are assertive, you might be looked at as aggressive or ungrateful. So unfortunately, when you are making your case, you want to do it with, appreciation and empathy, smiling. And I hate that I'm telling women to smile, but there we go. Using your hands, right? We have a lot of energy. By the way, you're thinking right now, well, how are we negotiating? Is it on the phone, email? Because we can't do it in person. Even if they want to do it by email, please ask them for a face-to-face. Because of the double bind, nuances are going to get lost. People sound kind of jerky on the email, right? There's a lot of miscommunication there. So when you're doing this, it's about your excitement, enthusiasm, appreciation, empathy, the team, we're positive, but you say the number that you want and you stick by it. Calm your nerves. Okay, because guess what? Everything that I just told you, none of it matters if you don't have the guts to actually do it. Or if you're like, but that's not strong. And by the way, it absolutely happens. It's happened to me. I get it. Breathe, okay? There is a great breathing exercise that I recommend. Perhaps do it sitting down to begin with. Otherwise, you may pass out. But it's called the 4-7-8. And you breathe in for 4 counts. By the way, before you breathe in, you want to make sure you breathe everything out, get all the air out of your stomach. Breathing in for 4 counts, holding it for 7, breathing it out for 8. Do this 3 times. This is going to get your heart rate down. You're going to feel a lot calmer. But don't just do this before you go in. I mean, really get into the habit of practicing breathing well before, because if it's new to you, it can actually, I find it sort of makes me more stressed. Am I breathing correctly? Putting yourself in their shoes. Remember, they have to ask for a raise too. Pretending you're in a movie, going back to that analogy before, because when you watch a movie, you're probably rooting for the main character. And I think when you're watching a movie, you recognize that whatever happens, it is just a scene in a larger story. So if you go in and negotiate and you mess up or they tell you no, if you were watching it, you'd see them as quite endearing, right? You probably wouldn't be mad at the main character. And then you'd look at it and you go, well, this had to happen for them to learn whatever. This had to happen for them to get to the next place. You just don't know what that next place is yet. Accepting your fear. This is a kind of Buddhist principle. Instead of being agitated about it, because then you're going to fight the agitation, you just say, well, this is where I'm at. And here's a way to concretely do this. And I highly recommend this for anybody who's in a situation where you have to kind of perform. When you practice, and yes, you should be practicing, you're going to practice with the scripts that I'm about to give you. When you practice, I want you to observe your body. When do you start getting nervous, right? When does that fear start bubbling up? Palms are sweaty, right? Heartbeats. Okay. Don't fight it. Just say, this is when it happens. It is what it is. You're going to keep practicing, but the point of practicing is not to be perfect. I hate that expression, right? Practice makes perfect. You know why? Because that is so much pressure. So much pressure. It's not possible to be perfect, right? But the reason I'm having you kind of accept the fear is when it is time to actually negotiate, it may not happen, or it will happen, but it'll happen for a nanosecond because it's not catching you by surprise. You have seen this emotion before. You have worked through this emotion before, right? And you're also not going in there saying, I'm not going to mess up. I'm not going to mess up. And you're going in saying, probably will mess up. So that when and if you do mess up, you're not going to be mad at yourself. Okay, protecting your energy. This is when I get a little bit woo-woo, so stick with me for 1 second. I like to imagine myself wrapped in a bubble or having some kind of gold paint over me. And the reason that I'm doing this is I'm effectively saying to the person I'm negotiating with, whatever number you end up giving me, it cannot touch me. It cannot touch my self-esteem. It cannot touch my identity. This whole my net worth equals my self-worth. No. Because this is largely out of your control. You could go in and be the strongest, best negotiator ever, and budgets are budgets. People are jerks, right? You cannot take that on. So whatever you need to do, for me, it's that visualization to just say, I am me, I'm doing my best, and they're in their situation, and we're just trying to figure it out together. Lastly, sometimes doing it for someone else, whether it's your family or your cat, my cat, people on this call. Again, this is bigger than you, and you may find that actually makes you feel better. The scripts. So negotiating at a new job, they ask you this: how much do you make currently? I would probably tell them the truth. A lot of people may say, add 20% to what you made before. There's no reason to lie. That's not a great, let's not start a relationship on a lie. But your point is not, well, here's what I made and it is what it is. It's, I did research and let's focus on the research. Or what I made before, I was given that salary when, I hadn't had all of the experience that I'm now bringing to the table. So that salary isn't reflective of where I'm at now, how I've grown. Or you could just keep it abstract, right? I make in the low 5 figures, or just my boss prefers that I keep the number confidential. Sometimes people will, just one thing I want to mention is I've asked a number of people, how do you know how much you want to make? And before they ever do any research, they think, well, I want to make more than I made last year. So maybe 20%, right? And they pitch that. They might've been underpaid. Please do not calculate what you want today based on what you got paid yesterday. Because again, you may have a lot more skills than you did at that point. That company might've been struggling, right? Budgets are budget. So keep it really focused on the market research that you've done. Now this question, how much do you want to make? I would say, according to my research, a typical rate for a person with my experience makes between X and Y. Because I'm a top performer, I'd be looking for the higher end. Now, somebody may tell you, many people will tell you this, they'll go, well, don't ever say how much you want to make, really put it back on them. You can do that, but just be aware that when you do that, they will probably quote you a number that's quite low and it might knock you off your game. Okay, I'm speaking from personal experience. If somebody quotes me a low number, I get flustered. I think, oh no, my whole preparation is off. I don't know how to respond to that. If you're the one who says the number that you want and it is based on the market research because you presented that, it's called anchoring high. You take command. But you could also be a little bit more abstract here, which is, I'd love to give you a figure, but I'm afraid I may go too high and lose the opportunity. If you can share your budget, that will help us get to a figure that works for both of us. Something that I love about this script is us, right? Using the words like help us figure it out, right? I would prefer to learn more about the position and how I could contribute to your team before discussing salary. So that's option C. It's not my preferred one, but I'm giving you 3 options because I'm not you. And you have, whatever situation you're in, whatever person, you're negotiating with that you have a relationship with. So pick the one that feels best to you. And they're going to say, well, that's too high for us. We were thinking something closer to X. And you can say, X is a great starting point. You have to be quiet. You have to really be quiet. Okay, it's hard to be quiet. I'm going to tell you how being quiet really helped me, but I was accidentally quiet. I once quoted a potential client a lot of money and they said, sorry, we can't do it. Okay, I lost the position. Then 3 months later, they come back to me and they're offering me a rate that is just so much bigger than I could have ever dreamed to ask for. And I thought, what happened? And then I went through my inbox and I realized they had emailed my spam, or I guess they'd emailed me and it went to spam. And when I didn't respond, this was another email they sent increasing my rate because they thought I didn't respond because I didn't want it. Now, am I saying don't respond? Absolutely not. Okay. But it was kind of funny to see this experience really illustrate the power of silence. The ball is effectively in their court. And then they give you an offer. You have to make sure that it's in writing, okay, because it's not real if it's not in writing. See if you can buy time. You just negotiated strongly and you want to keep that going. So you say, this is a major life decision and I want to discuss it with my family. I'd like to request some time to confirm. Is that a possibility? Because we were thinking something closer to X. They say, okay, X is a great starting point. Then they say, all right, well, what were you thinking? Okay, well, this is the research that I did. How do we get closer to what I'm looking for? And then they say, okay, let's split the difference. Right? So it's just a back and forth based on the numbers that you had prepared. And then this is when you can't be afraid to walk away. Negotiating at your current job. All right, so when do you ask? I would find out when the budget cycle is. This is a good question to ask your manager or good question to ask the HR person. You might want to position it as, I'd like to learn more about the business. I want to be a leader here. But what you're really figuring out is when budgets are decided is when you should be talking to your manager about your growth. That doesn't mean you go to your manager and necessarily say, I want to get a raise unless you have a good relationship with them. But what you are saying is, I want to make sure that I am performing to the best of my ability. I am performing beyond what you're looking for and that I'm in a good position to move up or get a raise. You could say that. Go and talk to them and you how to win. Go and talk to them and say, I've had this win. Here's what I learned. I mean, by the way, you should be doing this all the time anyway. I want to make sure that I'm on the path to get a raise or a path to level up. Maybe use that. All right. So they say no. They say no. And by the way, this also is part of the script for when you are negotiating at a new job and not just a current job. This is where you have to get creative with the full compensation. Is there a year-end bonus that comes out of a different pot of money? Or perhaps equity. Use the word creative. Can we get creative to getting us closer to this number? Look at that. Us, we figure out together. They really won't budge. Okay, well, when is the next time that we can discuss this? I'd love to get something on the calendar to figure out if what I'm doing meets your measure of success. You tell me exactly what I need to do to get paid what the market will bear for a top performer like me. The more information you can get from them, the more power you have, because you can effectively take that information and weave it into your case. It's informing the case that you make. Let's say they say, all right, let's discuss in 6 months. You say, great. Then you say, I'd like to put a time on your calendar 3 months in, just to make sure that I'm on track, to make sure that I understand how the business is doing. By the way, keep your eyes and ears on the ground. Is the business bringing in more business recently? Right. By the way, even if the business doesn't look like it's doing well, you still have to try to negotiate, because this could be a time where you get more full compensation. Still on budge, you ask about full comp. Questions. Good. I think we're right on time. I think we have about 15 minutes. So bring on the questions and let's see if I can answer them. I'll do my best.
So the first one here is, how do you avoid getting a job offer rescinded when you're in the midst of salary negotiations?
You don't want to work there. You don't want to work. And again, this is why I always talk about you want to have strong savings and other opportunities. Pay attention to how you feel during this entire experience, the interviewing process, the negotiating. If you feel weird about it, if you feel like they've been leading you on, not responding to you, I mean, that's not a good relationship. And, whatever your experience is now, it's probably not going to change if you do go work there. I have heard from 2 people out of thousands that I've spoken to that had their offer rescinded. If you're basing it on market research, shame on them for rescinding the offer. So maybe not the answer you want to hear, because it means you have to move on, but you're the character in the movie. And what do we say to that character when she doesn't get the job? You're like, good for you, because you're going to get a better one after this.
How has COVID-19 affected salary negotiation? And then there was another one that was similar. Should I accept a salary offer that is lower than what I was earning before COVID just to have a job?
Mm-hmm. Something I want to say about jobs and COVID is there is no shame in taking a job that you wouldn't normally take. There's no shame in taking a paycheck you wouldn't normally take. We gotta feed ourselves, and no one's going to look at your resume between 2020 and they're going to say, why did they not work? That was a weird job. We all know what's going on. So let's just put that that to a side. The pandemic, COVID, and money, it's just gotten tighter. I mean, here's the thing. There are certain industries and certain companies where business is booming. Business is booming. You probably know a few. Zoom, okay. Healthcare. You could Google, what are the industries that are doing well right now? So they should be definitely giving you the money that you're asking for. Now, other industries, it might be hard. And this is where I really want you to think about full compensation and do it in relation to how does this make your life easier and about the future. Can you ask for something that will help you get to the next job in some way? So that, asking with empathy. I mean, we should always ask with empathy, but even saying, I understand, I'm negotiating during a time where there's a lot of upheaval and things are changing, but here's the research that I did and I want to have a, conversation about it. So you have to at least try, but this is where full compensation will I think come into play more than maybe other times. Because I think you said, is it okay to take a job that pays less than my last one? If it fits into what you want to do. I mean, sometimes if you're changing your job, you're pivoting, you will probably have to take a pay cut because you just don't have the full experience that somebody who's maybe worked there for 10 years has. So this is where money and negotiating and career, I mean, it's part of a much larger holistic conversation about your lifestyle, the goals, values. Remember me talking about that. So that's really the question you have to answer for yourself, including your budget. Does this fit 50%, 30%, 20%?
Next question here is, how to negotiate when you're the highest costing candidate, but the most qualified?
Mm-hmm. I think negotiating when you are the most senior person and you get paid the most, even if you're qualified or the most qualified, again, you still have to go. I mean, the answer is probably the same to all these questions, which is you still have to do it. And maybe don't bring up the fact that you know that it could be a ding against you. So maybe don't say, I know I'm the highest paid person here, so I probably won't get a yes. You're making it a lot easier for them to say no to you. So you just talk about the work that you've done and the money that it's brought in. And again, that includes any saved time is saved money, okay, which means money made. So drill into the impact that you've had and quantify it as best as possible. And perhaps you need to get a competing offer. You know, this is where you maybe need to like fish elsewhere, and maybe you're at a company that's just not going to allow you to grow, right? Many companies, there's just a certain cap to it, and that's the reality of it. And that's where you look at the company perks and the cost benefit for yourself. Just don't bring up to them that you know that this could be a problem, because it's just, again, making it too easy for them.
Good advice. Next question we have here is, I'm finding that ageism is a big factor these days. So women are getting aged out of the job market. Now what?
Yes, I would make sure that other people are looking at your resume, or you're talking through certain situations where you feel like you're experiencing ageism. I would not put what year you graduated college on your resume. I wouldn't talk about things from more than 10 years ago. So do be aware of how much of the past that you're bringing up. I would also very much make sure that you have all the skills that are needed. You know the industry like the back of your hand. When you talk about your work, it's an asset. You know what you're doing. You've been here before. You bring a great perspective. You balance the team in a way. You know, if this is a young team, your diversity, your age diversity. And there's absolutely a business case to be made. When teams are more diverse, the bottom line is improved 15%. And diversity can be, defined in a lot of different ways. So be proactive and bring that up. So getting feedback from somebody else and walking through the scenario in which you feel like you're experiencing ageism, and if it's been a pattern, because it could also just be, a crappy boss. Like, I want to make sure that this is the actual thing that's going on versus just sort of bad luck.
And I just posted in the chat an article from our career guide that talks about avoiding ageism during your job search. So hopefully that'll help as well. So the next question we have here is, should you even ask to negotiate if the base salary was already established during the interview?
I think it depends on the market research. I mean, if it's totally in line with the research, listen, if it's at the top of the band, still negotiate. But if it is at the top of the band, you're probably not going to get more. So then I would very much focus the negotiation on the full compensation. And like I said, we only put a couple of bullet points on there. So do a ton of research. Gas money, get them to pay for gas money. That's really good. Or a Metro card if you live in a city with a subway, and we're back to commuting again. Getting them to pay for your internet, your cell phone. Really look around your home and anything that you need to do your job. A light ring, a stand for your computer. Stop putting it on books. It's more flattering if you have it on a stand. So go calculate all the things that it's taking you at home. The Post-it notes. Focus the full compensation on that if they've already really established the rate and it is in line with the market.
After a job offer is sent to me, what is a fair amount of time to request for a decision or a counteroffer, especially with the added complexity due to COVID? How long can they ask for, time-wise, to make their decision after the offer is made?
I would probably ask them, hey, to my point before of this is a major life decision and for both of us, and I want to discuss it with my family. Even if your family is you and your cat, say it anyway. How much time do I have to consider? Now, if they say something like by the end of the day, which I've had a company say that before, red flag. No, that's putting a lot of pressure on you. So see if you can extend it a little bit more. I was hoping for something closer to a day or a day and a half. Would you be comfortable with that? And again, when you say I need to discuss it with my family, it becomes a lot harder for them to push back on you. This is just so case by case. But my only thing is if they say you have to tell us immediately, not a good sign.
And what if a company says an offer is non-negotiable?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, if it's based, look at it compared to the market research. They say it's non-negotiable, but it's super low. You can continue on the interview. Even if they told you at the beginning it's non-negotiable, when you get the offer, and again, you have to get the offer at that point. You're not negotiating beforehand. When you get the offer, you say, I did market research. I understand, in the beginning we discussed it being non-negotiable, but I want to just say I did my due diligence. Here's the research I found. How about say something like, I know that you compensate your employees fairly. This is a fair company. So I'm curious, how did you come to this number compared to the market value? I just want to have a better understanding of how it works here. So it's you basically making the point that you want more money without saying, screw you, give me more money. Hopefully that answered your question. Or you could say, screw you, give me more money, and then be prepared to walk away.
That would be a different tactic. Another question, how does the negotiation change when you're a contractor or part-time?
Yeah, that becomes a lot harder to negotiate. I mean, I have a whole presentation where I talk about freelancers and determining your freelance rate. Oftentimes freelancers make more money than full-timers. I mean, when you really break it down to the hourly, you think about people in finance who make tons and tons and tons of money, but they're working tons and tons and tons of hours. They might have an hourly of $6. So as a contractor, you're paying for your own healthcare, your own computer, all that stuff. So you actually have a ton of costs and your hourly should be a lot more. That being said, you don't really have as much leverage, if you're a contractor, unless you have some special skills where you're super competitive against other contractors. So do your due diligence with the market research. It's the same negotiation. That's the thing. This is all the same negotiation, which is why even though you need to take this framework and put it into your own context, this is universal. Which at the end of the day, it really is about the research and telling your story, why the work that you do is special and it impacts people and it impacts companies. And if you're ever having trouble kind of selling yourself, really recommend go make friends with people in public relations and PR, in salespeople, marketing people, okay? Because they're going to teach you how to sell a story, how to spin. And so get feedback on the way that you're presenting yourself, because I know this can be a bit tricky.
I think we have time for one more question. How do we negotiate when entering a large company that has a wage scale for people with the same role?
Yeah. And there are organizations, my brother works for the government, the other one's a doctor. There's certain lawyers. There's certainly, and oftentimes this is transparent, but there's still a pay band. So just make sure that on the scale that you fully understand how and why you're being compensated. And that might mean a discussion with HR. How did you come up with my salary? I understand this other person who seems to be on my level is making more. So just get information from them. And it's not done in a way where you're accusing them or you're demanding. It's just so I can understand how this company operates and my place in it. I sound like a broken record, but that really is the way that you position all of these questions. And you may not be able to negotiate. Sometimes these things are set, they're transparent, and it is what it is. And that's where just make sure you're doing work that helps you get to the next job, that you're building those skills, right? That you are raising your hand for opportunities, you're coming up with initiatives. Because at the end of the day, yes, I'll sort of end with the way that I began, which is, you need to get paid for the work that you do today, but it's really thinking about for tomorrow and the future for your own career and for your family. Is this orienting yourself there? And money is a big part of it, but it isn't everything. Money doesn't buy happiness. So I guess I'm kind of ending in a way that contradicts my whole message here, which is the money is part of the larger picture. So you kind of just have to know how that fits into it.
Thanks for all the great questions, everyone.
Okay. ladiesgetpaid.com/join. We have a Slack group where there are more than 75,000 women on it. Over 1.5 million messages have been exchanged. Totally free. So just sign up there. We're going to add you. Salary negotiation channel is out of control and you will have a good time because again, today it was all about the framework and then you need to filter it through your own situation. Stay in touch with me, Claire Wasserman XO. Ask me questions. I might not have time to get back to you, but I'll send you an emoji. But you never know. Shoot your shot. And I'd love to be in touch. And I totally believe in you. And I think you've got it. I know you've got it. And I just hope that you know that too. go.indeed.com/jobcast. So great that Indeed is putting this on. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being here. I know it's some dark times right now, but I'm feeling positive. Right now in this moment, I'm feeling positive. So, I really hope that you feel that too.
Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom today, Claire. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Now go on and get paid. Have a good night.